We are live. So, have you ever watched Adventure Time?
Some, not enough.
There's an episode, I won't spoil it for you because it's a pretty um anyway. The point is there's a very famous Adventure Time gif where a deer comes in with its hooves and then it takes off one hoof and takes off the other hoof and it has fingers and it goes like this. And that's what I think of every time I do that now.
The first episode we ever saw was when we were at Starfest as a family in the hotel room. The kids turned on cable, and it was the episode where LeVar Burton voices that bubble that BMO makes friends with. And at the end of the episode, Jake pops the bubble,
Yeah.
and
Oh.
BMO's totally devastated.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and the kids were enthralled, and Jason and I were like,
That's the thing I found with Adventure Time is like I started watching it and I was like, oh, this is a nice relaxing kid show. Like my friend recommended it to me, whatever. I was watching it and like texting him occasionally being like, oh, this is so relaxing. And then it started to pick up and I was texting him like, what the fuck? Like
and then of course it's a happy ending because the bubble's like, no, BMO, it's all right. This is my true form. And you're like,
right, I'll always be with you. And you're like, oh,
okay. Yeah.
so
But
many of
when I
those moments.
realized Jake was John DiMaggio, I was like, oh, well, then I have to watch it. I just haven't gotten around to it. I met
There's a
him,
lot of it. There's like 11 seasons. So I'm
and
somewhere in the middle.
I have friends who are fans, so I remember hearing that the series finale is just amazing, like eucatastrophic, tear jerky, all of it. So that's something to look forward to.
It's one of those shows where they put stuff in the beginning that you think is a throwaway, and then it comes back, and you're like, I remembered that from 2 seasons ago. That was a throwaway joke. Oh my god! Like, yeah,
How very Douglas Adams of them.
it is quite a Douglas Adamsy show, actually.
The creators made Midnight Gospel, and I watched the crap out of that. Jason doesn't want to watch it 2 or 3 times, but I totally do.
Haven't watched that yet. Same friend recommended it though. Probably same reason.
Yeah, it's not Adventure Time, but it's
No.
clearly like birthed from the same brain.
One of these days, I'll check it out.
Oh, dude.
What
It's
I was
also
going
a hell of a lot of Yellow Submarine in it, just as a visual influence.
That's probably from the drugs.
Could be.
Anywho, what I was going to tell you is that I was watching back through some of our little bits of our old episodes earlier.
Yeah.
Which was fun. And I feel like I watched our intro and I was like, I feel like if you look into my eyes, I've aged 20 years since March. Also kind of miss my pre-quarantine hair, although it's doing all right today. But anyway, I'm thinking that what I'd like to do, I've never done any organizing of any sort, really. I started some playlists and then I kind of trailed off. So I want to do some like thumbnail cards and playlists and just get everything a little bit organized. Put an actual description underneath any of them.
Okay.
Stuff like that. So probably going to do that housekeeping unless I get bored and forget about it. But
that'd be awesome.
I also watched the episode where I was starting this sweater, and I'm now on the sleeve.
Sleeve time!
Sleeve time! So we have about 3 or 4 inches of the first sleeve and then the rest of the sweater. I don't know if I've showed you the sweater.
Yes, but I hadn't seen the purple at the bottom yet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really show up on camera. It looks a lot more red magenta than it is. Yeah. No, it is that magenta. This makes it look more burgundy. And it's like the color of my Doc Martens, basically.
I want to see it in person. I'm a person sister time. I met John DiMaggio 2 years ago, and he was really, really nice, and he gave me a big hug.
Remember hugging strangers? I mean, I didn't personally do it, but remember when you used to hug strangers?
It was because I gave him a painting, and I was like, it's for Burning Man, but I'm not going." And he asked why, and I said, "Because I have cancer." And he jumped up and ran around the table and gave me a hug. He was like, "Beat it!"
And you did.
I did.
Thanks, John DiMaggio.
Thank you, John. I will call you John as if I know you.
Look, parasocial connections are very important in this time of plague.
It's true.
Also, I need a measuring tape. Also, the reason why I'm working on the sweater and not the gloves is I'm mad at the gloves because I had to start them 4 times, so they're in timeout.
Fair enough. The fourth time worked, though?
I don't know. I only got this far, and then I was like, this is not fun anymore because I've done it 4 times, so I stopped.
Fair
We'll
enough.
find
out. My friend told me today that her sons with the 3D printer are going to model. They have a favorite of the elements. When I brought out Technetium a couple days ago, they were absolutely Verschnickered isn't the right word, but
No, it's not. Verklempt?
Verklempt. They were verklempt. So they're going to make a 3D model of it and print it out. And she was like, "I hope that's okay with you." And I was like, "Yeah."
God, I hope that's the thumbnail.
Dear God, yes. More enthusiasm.
Good Lord, I've gone too far. No. No, this cannot be. Fuck.
With the sleeve or the enthusiasm?
With the sleeve. Perhaps with my enthusiasm for the sleeve, because I'm pretty sure I was only supposed to knit 4 inches before I did a decrease, and I knit almost 5.
No! You have long arms, though.
I do.
But if you do a decrease at a random spot, then you're going to have a hard time matching it.
Well, I mean, I can write down where I did it. You know, I can say this many rows or whatever. I just don't know if I care enough to... What?
How I did it.
Yes, I will title it that. It won't look at all suspicious if anyone goes through my hard drive. And like from there, I just like continue and do a few more every such and such number of rows.
Okay.
So it's probably fine. It just means that the shaping will fall kind of further down by like an inch. How much does that bother me?
Some.
Some.
Is some too much?
Have I come too far on this sweater to start cutting corners?
Right? I'm going to be a perfectionist all the way through, or not at all.
I mean, I haven't even been a perfectionist. I fucked up a couple of things, but there's like a point where you're like, okay, but like...
Go ahead and just go with what you've gone with is my advice.
Well, here's the other thing. I don't know for sure because I didn't get around to washing it yet. But when I wash it, it's probably going to extend. So it'll end up being like 1.5 inches past where I'm supposed to decrease. And I just feel like that's too far.
Okay. Since I'm not the one who knits, I am not going to tell you what to do.
Well, thank you for coming with me on this journey.
I am honored.
If you want to see something terrifying, there you go.
No! So, Abaddon, who is homeschooling, hates writing. He hates writing, and he's supposed to be working on a personal narrative. And we've had conversations where I'm like, "Sweetie, all your favorite YouTubers tell personal narratives. Like, what's her name? Jaden and Odd Ones Out and Tim Tom and something else YT. These are all people who make a career out of personal narratives. They don't even have to be exciting. That's what storytelling means. They could talk about going and doing a load of laundry, and it's an amazing adventure. And that's all that you're like, pretend you're one of them and do this. And he's like, eh. So he's hating on it. Mostly because he hates writing, mostly because he hates that he has to work on his handwriting. And it's
Mm-hmm.
tedious and it's a bitch.
Sure.
So it'll be like pulling teeth to get that assignment done. But he's read every one of our Calvin and Hobbes books twice now, and he's got them pretty much memorized, and he wants to write a Calvin and Hobbes cookbook.
Aw, that's a
So
cute
I
idea.
might parlay that into a way for him to practice writing shit down. If it's something he's actually excited about, he might do it without even noticing that he's working on this stuff. Yeah, all of the gross foods that Calvin talks about, plus his perfectionist sandwich, plus Susie Durkins' favorite food is cheddar cheese and ketchup sandwich on white bread. And Avi insisted on trying it the other day and was so taken with the notion of eating comic strip food. He loves it. It's his favorite lunch now.
I'm very happy that he has a favorite lunch that he loves. That sounds really gross.
It sounds so gross. It's not that bad. He wanted his siblings to try a bite and they all scorned him, so I tried a bite and it wasn't that bad. But it's one of those, like, he's a super picky eater, so the fact that it was Calvin and Hobbes food made it appealing to him.
So, can you sneak vegetables into Calvin and Hobbes food? Because as I recall, that's what Calvin's mom sure likes to do.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, there's she tells him there's something like monkey brains was one of the meals and it's stuffed peppers. I don't know what we're going to do for spider pie, but I'm sure it had vegetables in it.
Nori seaweed gets pretty spidery if you like slice it up thin.
Right? Could be sprouts in there too.
Could be sprouts.
Or like julienne vegetables that are just cut into little matchsticks and looking like stiff little legs. I don't know, but I think he and I might find that a way to enjoy homeschooling.
A bonding experience.
A bonding experience.
I don't know why I said it like that, but
The bitch will be trying to convince his teachers that that's good enough for English and whatever. I don't know. It's none of their business. They can't hurt us. They can pass any one of their tests. So if he passes 4th grade with a D minus, he passes it.
Indeed. I was going to say, spoken like someone from a homeschooling family.
Yeah, an adherence to an educational system that has failed us all is not one of my weaknesses.
I think there's a lack of appreciation for the possibilities of asynchronous learning from people who have not done any homeschooling before.
Yeah.
They're like, but what will we do? You know, the children aren't adhering to a schedule. And I'm like, so?
Yeah. Oh, my favorite is the but how will they socialize? Homeschooled grown-ups who are homeschooled children are famously terrible at socializing. And I'm like,
I talk to people for a living. Like, that's literally my job.
yeah. Yeah, I actually had to argue on that one. I was like, that's wrong. That's wrong. It's just a misconception. Like, there's no numbers behind this. It's nonsense.
Yeah, no,
Even,
it's purely incorrect.
yeah. Even it's not empirical evidence, but all of I was like, socializing, the only social skill I learned in a public school was how to pretend I'm not smarter than the people around me so they don't hurt me. Turns out that's not actually a great skill to have as an adult because you end up pretending you're dumb all the time.
Yeah, I mean, as an adult, you get to choose environments where that's not something that people want from you, which is nice.
And also where merit gets rewarded, hopefully. There's a few environments that you can choose that are like that. And if you insist on pretending you don't have merit.
I mean, I would potentially separate the idea of intelligence from the idea of merit, because there are lots of ways to be smart, or there are lots of ways to be smart that don't have a lot of merit, and there's lots of ways to have merit that don't involve being smart.
Yeah, but when it's school, it's both that you suppress.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. My point being, the best social people, or the best people I know are homeschoolers. And they are no more socially awkward than anybody else I know. So, not though the glittering caves of Aglarond be left behind. Is that where we were at?
I believe so.
Oh, no. Wait, stay. Don't. What are their flocks? To such days we are doomed.
Oh, right. And then we had a discussion. Doom, 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 doom. And then we had like that whole philosophical discussion about how Gandalf could have been a little bit less of a downer.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's shit to look forward to as well. It's not like human equals bad.
Yes, that's really the narrative that we have to fight here. Is the idea that humanity is inherently bad. It's like, well, does that perhaps come from the Protestant ideas that we're all doomed to hell? Because I don't believe in those.
He's Catholic.
Okay, well, I was talking about the cultural ones in general, but yes, Catholics are also notorious for that. Side note.
The company turned then away from the coombe and from the wood and took the road towards the fords.
Towards the fords.
Towards the fords.
Oh.
Legolas followed reluctantly. The sun had set. Already it had sunk behind the rim of the world. But as they rode out from the shadow of the hills and looked west to the gap of Rohan, the sky was still red, and a burning light was under the floating clouds. Dark against it there wheeled and flew many black-winged birds. Some passed overhead with mournful cries, returning to their homes among the rocks. The carrion fowl have been busy about the battlefield, said Eomer. Birds are eating my friends.
Yes.
Yeah. They rode now at an easy pace, and dark came down upon the plains about them. The slow moon mounted, now waxing towards the full, and in its cold silver light the swelling grasslands rose and fell like a wide grey sea. I know it's a minor point, but I have always loved that if you're reading Tolkien and he says what phase the moon is in, you can bet your sweet ass that he did the math.
You know what's
the waxing and waning of the moon for the entire story, like you do.
Like you do. Sandy has been DMing a campaign for her family for the last like 3 years, and their characters are like went from like 1st to 14th level. They've been on a bunch. It's a whole thing. But she's very Tolkien-esque about that. If you ask her what the weather is or the phase of the moon at any given point in the last 3 years of campaigning, she will know. She has charts.
That is excellent. Because sometimes that's important. If you're like, all right, how light is the night tonight? I'm picking a lock. I need to know if I've got moonlight. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Or like, the mind flayers didn't attack you because it was raining. Congratulations.
Oh, good.
I don't know that mind flayers are afraid of rain, but if they were, that would be why they weren't attacking that day.
Exactly.
Unrelated note, I find it weirdly stressful watching myself knit. People have told me they find it
very soothing.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody else finds it soothing, and I just watch it, and I'm like mentally doing it. So it's like I'm knitting all over again.
I haven't watched enough to find out if it bothers me to watch me paint. I should definitely go back and see. I know that I always edit my footage. I'd much rather when I'm watching other people paint, I'd rather watch a time lapse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to watch every individual stroke. Oh my god, I found the mom requested that I put like 30 seconds at the end of my videos that's, in real time because she likes
Mm-hmm.
watching real time paintings. And I've been having a good time these last couple videos with finding like 30 seconds that are funny or awful. I at one point shit. I don't think it was fluorine, it was the one before fluorine. Or neon. It's next. But it's like everything went wrong.
No. Um, I'm a terrible sibling because I don't know where to find your YouTube channel. Will you text me the link at some point?
Absolutely.
Good. In my defense, I'm not on Facebook ever.
Fair enough. It's okay. It's just Bite the Paintbrush is my
Oh,
channel.
okay, I can find that.
Yeah. It's super, super easy.
And back to the gray sea of grass.
Gracie. They had ridden for some 4 hours from the branching of the roads when they drew near the forts. Long slopes ran swiftly down to where the river spread in stony shoals between high grassy terraces. Borne upon the wind, they heard the howling of wolves. Their hearts were heavy, remembering the many men that had fallen in battle in this place. The road dipped between rising turf banks, carving its way through the terraces to the river's edge, and up again upon the further side. There were 3 lines of flat stepping stones across the stream, and between them fords for horses that went from either brink to a bare eyot in the midst. The riders looked down upon the crossings, and it seemed strange to them, for the fords had ever been a place full of the rush and chatter of water upon stones, but now they were silent. The beds of the stream were almost dry, a bare waste of shingles and grey sand. "This has become a dreary place," said Eomer. "What sickness has befallen the river? Many fair things Saruman has destroyed. Has he devoured the springs of Isen too?" "So it would seem," said Gandalf. "Alas," said Theoden, "must we pass this way where the carrion beasts devour so many good riders of the mark?" "This is our way," said Gandalf. "Grievous is the fall of your men, but you shall see that at least the wolves of the mountains do not devour them. It is with their friends, the orcs, that they hold their feast. Such indeed is the friendship of their kind. Come. Eat your friends.
Look, if you die
You will grow
alone
up."
in a house, your house pets will eat you too.
It's true.
People like to say that cats would do it first, but actually, animal behaviors say that dogs are more likely to eat you more quickly.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. They get stressed, and then they will stress lick you to try to wake you up, and then they'll stress nip you, and then instinct takes over.
And then they'll stress eat like we all do.
Look, I'm just saying, if eating pierogies is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Who's pierogies?
Why didn't I see that coming?
It would have been better if I hadn't laughed.
No, it was perfect.
They rode down to the river, and as they came, the wolves ceased their howling and slunk away. Fear fell on them, seeing Gandalf in the moon and Shadowfax his horse shining like silver. The riders passed over to the islet, and glittering eyes watched them wanly from the shadows of the banks. "Look," said Gandalf, "friends have labored here." And they saw that in the midst of the eyot a mound was piled, ringed with stones, and set about with many spears. Here lie all the men of the mark that fell near this place, said Gandalf. Here let them rest, said Eomer, and when their spears have rotted and rusted, long still may their mound stand and guard the fords of Isen. Is this your work also, Gandalf, my friend? Said Theoden. You accomplished much in an evening and a night. With the help of Shadowfax, who dug the holes.
Right? Like, he doesn't have thumbs, Gandalf. I'm pretty sure you did that.
And others, said Gandalf. I rode fast and far. But here beside the mound I will say this for your comfort. Many fell in the battles of the fords, but fewer than rumour made them. More were scattered than were slain. I gathered together all that I could find. Some men I sent with Grimbold of Westfold to join Erkenbrand. Some I set to make this burial. They have now followed your marshal Elfhelm. I sent him with many riders to Edoras. Saruman, I knew, had dispatched his full strength against you, and his servants had turned aside from all other errands and gone to Helm's Deep. The land seemed empty of enemies, yet I feared that wolf riders and plunderers might ride nonetheless to Meduseld, while it was undefended. But now I think you need not fear. You will find your house to welcome your return.
So
And
all I can
glad
think...
shall I...
Sorry.
Yeah?
When he says, like, he turned them aside from all other errands, all I can think is, like, no one's picking up Saruman's dry cleaning now.
Nope.
And you know he needs it with all those white robes.
Oh, God. Well, they're colorful now.
Yeah, I don't know if that's better. That just means they can't easily be bleached.
Right? The colors will run. You definitely need dry cleaning. I was thinking, so their initial game plan was to leave Eowyn in a place that was going to get ransacked and ravaged. Nice.
No, she took everybody to the other spot.
Dunharrow.
Dunharrow, yeah.
Not yet. They left her at the house.
They left her at the house and told her to take everyone to Dunharrow.
All right.
They would have presumed that she had done it.
Yeah. Well, that's a little better.
Not like Eowyn would have let any dudes on wolves take over her hall, but you know.
And glad shall I be to see it again, said Theoden. Though brief now, I doubt not, shall be my abiding there. With that, the company said farewell to the island and the mound, and passed over the river, and climbed the further bank. Then they rode on, glad to have left the mournful fords. As they went, the howling of the wolves broke out anew. Also, it's interesting to note that they had that entire conversation while there was, like, orc corpses scattered around.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody buried them.
I feel like the majority of Lord of the Rings happens with orc corpses scattered around, though. Like, let's be fair here.
Petty.
Just all over the place. Orc corpses as far as the eye can see.
Someone would have cleaned them up, but, no one's running Saruman's errands anymore, so... There was an ancient highway that ran down from Isengard to the crossings. For some way it took its course beside the river, bending with it east and then north. But at the last it turned away and went straight toward the gates of Isengard. And these were under the mountain's side in the west of the valley, 16 miles or more from its mouth. This road they followed, but they did not ride upon it, for the ground beside it was firm and level, covered for many miles about with short springing turf. They rode now more swiftly, and by midnight the fords were nearly 5 leagues behind. Then they halted, ending their night's journey, for the king was weary. They were come to the feet of the misty mountains, and the long arms of Nan Curonir stretched down to meet them. Dark lay the vale before them, for the moon had passed into the west, and its light was hidden by the hills. But out of the deep shadow of the dale rose a vast spire of smoke and vapor. As it mounted, it caught the rays of the sinking moon and spread in shimmering billows, black and silver, over the starry sky. Such a cool image. What do you think of that, Gandalf? Asked Aragorn. One would say that all the wizard's veil was burning. There is ever a fume above that valley in these days, said Éomer, but I have never seen aught like this before. These are steams rather than smokes. Saruman is brewing some devilry to greet us. Maybe he is boiling all the waters of Isen, and that is why the river runs dry.
Kind of. I mean, not on purpose.
Maybe he is, said Gandalf.
Gandalf.
Like, it's so many times where the communication would be very easy, like, oh, the men are too weary to go to sail Isengard. Oh, they don't have to, it's beaten. Like, no.
Right? Like how hard. So what's funny is I rewatched our channel trailer, and in there, one of the things we say we're going to talk about is how Gandalf never shares information.
He never does. Love to see him, like, plucked out of this story and put in some kind of a 24 style, like, he's a secret agent and someone tries to interrogate him. College humor could do a sketch, actually. Like,
well, I was also thinking like he'd be a great PR agent. Never tell nobody nothing.
Nope. It's also very political. I'm a politician. Tomorrow we shall learn what he is doing. Now let us rest for a while, if we can. They camped beside the bed of the Isen River. It was still, silent, and empty. Some of them slept a little, but late in the night the watchmen cried out, and all awoke. The moon was gone. Stars were shining above, but over the ground there crept a darkness blacker than the night. On both sides of the river it rolled towards them, going northward. "Stay where you are," said Gandalf. "Draw no weapons. Wait, and it will pass you by." A mist gathered about them. Above them a few stars still glimmered faintly, but on either side there arose walls of impenetrable gloom. They were in a narrow lane between moving towers of shadow. Voices they heard, whisperings and groanings and an endless rustling sigh. The earth shook under them. Long it seemed to them that they sat and were afraid, but at last the darkness and the rumor passed and vanished between the mountain's arms. A thinking soldier would have been pants-wettingly terrified, because that's the woods that ate the orc host.
Mm-hmm.
Dead and alive. Like, any of these trees decides it's still peckish, and there's nothing you can do to save yourself.
Nope. I was actually, when you said a thinking soldier, it just made me, for some reason, my immediate thought was like a Terry Pratchett character transplanted.
Oh, did we talk about... Yeah, we talked about the watch preview trailer.
Yeah, I still haven't watched it yet. I haven't felt like getting angry.
It's yeah. I watched it again today, and I was struck by the fact that if they had changed the names, come up with their own names, I would be very excited to watch this, because it does look like it's homage to Pratchett in a vague sort of way. Like, oh wow, they must have read the books and like borrowed aspects of the characters for these characters
that are unrelated. Yeah.
Just a few things. But no.
Nope. I don't know if I already said this is why we can't have nice things, but this is why we can't have nice things.
Away south upon the Hornberg in the middle night men heard a great noise, as a wind in the valley, and the ground trembled, and all were afraid, and no one ventured to go forth. But in the morning they went out and were amazed, for the slain orcs were gone, and the trees also. Far down into the valley of the deep the grass was crushed and trampled brown, as if giant herdsmen had pastured great droves of cattle there. But a mile below the dike a huge pit had been delved in the earth, and over it stones were piled into a hill. Men believed that the orcs whom they had slain were buried there, but whether those who had fled into the wood were with them, none could say, for no man ever set foot upon that hill. The Death Down it was afterwards called, and no grass would grow there. But the strange trees were never seen in Deeping Coombe again. They had returned at night and had gone far away to the dark dales of Fangorn. Thus they were avenged upon the orcs. And if the people of Middle-earth don't realize that teenagers of the Westfold would dare each other to climb the Death Down and like carve their initials on the rocks, then there's no hope for humanity.
I just think the Death Down is a super metal name.
It's so metal.
Hey, what's that hill called? The Death Down.
The king and his company slept no more that night, but they saw and heard no other strange thing save one. Which is a funny way of putting it.
I'm also just picturing them all sitting up awake like...
The voice of the river beside them suddenly awoke. There was a rush of water hurrying down among the stones, and when it had passed, the Eisen flowed and bubbled in its bed again, as it had ever done. At dawn they made ready to go on. The light came grey and pale, and they did not see the rising of the sun. The air above was heavy with fog, and a reek lay on the land about them. They went slowly, riding now upon the highway. It was broad and hard and well tended. Dimly through the mists they could descry the long arm of the mountains rising on their left. They had passed into Nan Curanir, the Wizard's Vale. That was a sheltered valley open only to the south. Once it had been fair and green, and through it the Eisen flowed, already deep and strong before it found the plains, for it was fed by many springs and lesser streams among the rain-washed hills, and all about it there had lain a pleasant, fertile land. It was not so now. Beneath the walls of Isengard there still were acres tilled by the slaves of Saruman, but most of the valley had become a wilderness of weeds and thorns. Brambles trailed upon the ground or clambered over bush and bank, made shaggy caves where small beasts housed. No trees grew there, but among the rank grasses could still be seen the burned and axe-hewn stumps of ancient groves. It was a sad country, silent now but for the stony noise of quick waters. Smokes and steams drifted in sullen clouds and lurked in the hollows. The riders did not speak. Many doubted in their hearts, wondering to what dismal end their journey led. After they had ridden for some miles, the highway became a wide street, paved with great flat stones, squared and laid with skill. No blade of grass was seen in any joint. Deep gutters filled with trickling water ran down on either side. Suddenly a tall pillar loomed up before them. It was black, and set upon it was a great stone carved and painted in the likeness of a long white hand. Its finger pointed north. Not far now they knew that the gates of Isengard must stand, and their hearts were heavy. But their eyes could not pierce the mists ahead. Beneath the mountain's arm, within the Wizard's Vale, through years uncounted, had stood that ancient place that men called Isengard. Partly it was shaped in the making of the mountains, but mighty works the men of Westerness had wrought there of old, and Saruman had dwelt there long, and had not been idle. This was its fashion, while Saruman was at his height, accounted by many the chief of wizards. A great ring wall of stone, like towering cliffs, stood out from the shelter of the mountain side, from which it ran and then returned again. One entrance only was there made in it, a great arch delved in the southern wall. Here, through the black rock, a long tunnel had been hewn, closed at either end with mighty doors of iron. They were so wrought and poised upon their huge hinges, posts of steel driven into the living stone, that when unbarred they could be moved with a light thrust of the arms, noiselessly. One who passed in and came at length out of the echoing tunnel beheld a plain, a great circle, somewhat hollowed like a vast shallow bowl. A mile it measured from rim to rim. Once it had been green and filled with avenues, and groves of fruitful trees watered by streams that flowed from the mountains to a lake. But no green thing grew there in the latter days of Saruman. The roads were paved with stone flags, dark and hard, and beside their borders, instead of trees, there marched long lines of pillars, some of marble, some of copper and of iron, joined by heavy chains. Many houses there were, chambers, halls, and passages cut and tunneled back into the walls upon their inner side, so that all the open circle was overlooked by countless windows and dark doors. Thousands could dwell there, workers, servants, slaves, and warriors with great store of arms. Wolves were fed and stabled in deep dens beneath. The plain, too, was bored and delved. Shafts were driven deep into the ground. Their upper ends were covered by low mounds and domes of stone, so that in the moonlight the ring of Isengard looked like a graveyard of unquiet dead. For the ground trembled. The shafts ran down by many slopes and spiral stairs to caverns far under. There Saruman had treasuries, storehouses, armories, smithies, and great furnaces. Iron wheels revolved there endlessly, and hammers thudded. At night, plumes of vapor steamed from the vents, lit from beneath with red light, or blue, or venomous green.
They did a really good job of this in the movie.
Yeah. And it's I love just the anti-industrialness of it. Like, you want to know what ugly is? Ugly is cutting down trees and doing this instead.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that.
I don't know either. It's yeah. I'm like I'm looking for a flaw. No, really.
No.
Nope. Oh, we can make it to the next gap, so we're gonna do that.
Okay.
To the center all the roads ran between their chains. There stood a tower of marvelous shape. It was fashioned by the builders of old, who smoothed the ring of Isengard, and yet it seemed a thing not made by the craft of men, but riven from the bones of the earth in the ancient torment of the hills. A peak and isle of rock it was, black and gleaming hard. 4 mighty piers of many-sided stone were welded into one, but near the summit they opened into gaping horns, their pinnacles sharp as the points of spears, keen-edged as knives. I think this was a John Howe illustration.
Yes, I think so.
And if I hadn't seen it, I would have no idea what to picture here, because his drawing was perfect.
It was.
Between them was a narrow space, and there, upon a floor of polished stone, written with strange signs, a man might stand 500 feet above the plain. This was Orthanc, the citadel of Saruman, the name of which had, by design or chance, a twofold meaning. For in the Elvish speech, Orthanc signifies Mount Fang, but in the language of the Mark of old, the cunning mind.
Well, there you go.
A
Also,
strong. Well, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, if you don't want people to think that you're evil, maybe don't live in a place called Mount Fang. Just throwing that out there.
I don't know. He-Man was after Castle Grayskull because it was like a seat of power that was totally neutral, and if bad people lived there, it could be evil. But Castle Grayskull could be a font of wisdom and culture too.
I
I'm
love that you're
posting the
bringing in
argument.
this 80s cartoon canon, okay?
Yeah, they're gonna reboot it. At least I've heard. She-Ra's doing so well, they've decided to do He-Man too.
Yeah, cool. I
Yeah,
mean, I think She-Ra's over, but yeah, it did really well.
did
They did,
really well. Yeah,
they did a. I mean, as you know, I am biased in what I like in my entertainment, so I'll say they did a really good job of making it gay.
they did. They did. I loved the gay. I think my only problem with it was that I waited for so long for better animation, and instead it was like a sideways move. It was better character design. It was better acting. It was a better story, but the animation was still crap. So it was like waiting decades for a chocolate cake, and then you get it and it's a little bit raw in the middle, so you're like,
We call that chocolate lava cake.
carrot cake then.
Oh.
Something that's really not supposed to be raw in the middle.
It's like waiting decades for a chocolate cake and you get a carrot cake.
Or a carob cake. Like it's almost chocolate. It's so close. So close.
I am not my standards for animation are not as high as yours, so that doesn't bother me with She-Ra.
Um,
But
I went to animation school. I ended up a slob. Slob, snob. Same thing. No, it's not, but I'm both of them. So it's okay. A strong place and wonderful was Isengard, and long it had been beautiful. And there great lords had dwelt, the wardens of Gondor upon the west, and wise men that watched the stars. But Saruman had slowly shaped it to his shifting purposes, and made it better, as he thought, being deceived, for all those arts and subtle devices for which he forsook his former wisdom, and which he fondly imagined were his own, came but from Mordor, so that what he made was not, only a little copy, a child's model or a slave's flattery of that vast fortress, armory, prison, furnace of great power, Barad-dûr, the dark tower, which suffered no rival and laughed at flattery, biding its time, secure in its pride and its immeasurable strength. This was the stronghold of Saruman as fame reported it, for within living memory the men of Rohan had not passed its gates, save perhaps a few, such as Wormtongue, who came in secret and told no man what they saw.
yeah.
Damn it. Okay. I'm glad we shot the breeze for a while, but now I'm sad because the next paragraph is Merry and Pippin, and I'm like,
Well, and I titled the episode Hobbits Being Hobbits, and we had no hobbits in this episode.
no hobbits, none at all. You need to
None
stop titling
whatsoever.
them. You can go back and retitle.
I don't
Is that
think so.
allowed? I know I
I'll
can.
find out. Hmm.
Right, when you do the housekeeping.
Yeah, when I do the housekeeping, I'll see. The ironic thing is that I actually did look at the upcoming bit to be like, what should I title it? And I was like, oh, we'll get to the hobbits.
Well, we would have if we hadn't been busy.
Yes, but we've literally never, I can say with authority, having watched back through our old episodes, we've literally never gone straight to reading. So I don't see why I expected us to start now.
Right.
All right. Well,
The culture of the podcast. We chit chat.
you want to see something satisfying? Well, on that note,
On that note, I love you.
I love you too.
I see you Monday.
Yes, indeed.
Cuidado.
Liamas.